Welcome back to Preparing for Dementia and Dawn Dementia Care. In our first video, we talked about 3 important ways to take care of ourselves when we're the primary caregiver or on the support team for someone who's experiencing dementia. Then in our second video, we talked about 3 critical ways in which we can support a loved one's functioning. Now let's take a look at someone's journey through dementia, at what it'll look like from a functional perspective. For if you consider dementia from the perspective of how it changes a person's ability to function, there is a path, a roadmap, that will give you a sense of what to expect and how to plan. Dementia looks very different from the perspective of changes to function. It's hard to design a care plan or predict anything if your model is a medical one, because medically, when we look at dementia from the perspective of disease and symptoms, there's too many factors. Medically, there are numerous types of dementia, most of which are difficult to identify. In addition, it's hard to isolate which parts of the brain are being affected. And then, if that can be determined when you look at the person's behaviors as symptoms of disease, you'll need to also consider their personality type. With these 3 factors, knowing what to expect or how to plan for the person's care looks close to impossible. And yet, even if we think we have an idea of how to proceed, there's another factor that will shape the need for and response to care: the person's earlier life experiences. For what we conclude from what we think is happening around us is largely determined by what we've experienced in the past. Medically charting and predicting a person's progress and needs as they go through dementia is very difficult. However, at Dawn, we turn instead to function. We teach families how to look at dementia from the perspective of how their loved one's ability to interact with the world and the people in it will change as they lose specific skills. With the Dawn method, we learn that people do not lose all their cognitive skills, they only lose some of them. And we learn to recognize which skills are kept so we can provide care that is truly supportive. My goal in creating Dawn was to help families come to understand dementia from the perspective of how it changes their loved one's ability to function so they can respond kindly to the increased cognitive and emotional needs, rather than to frustrate their loved ones with too much care or leave them at risk and feeling insecure with too little care. Of course, these 3 videos can only give you an overview, just a few critical points from what I teach families when I teach the Dawn method. I teach that in 8 sessions over 8 weeks. It takes time to begin to recognize and understand our own diverse cognitive skills so that we can begin recognizing which ones our loved ones are still using successfully. Living and working with someone who's experiencing dementia will be completely different from anything you've ever done before. Much of the Dawn method and what you'll find works well will seem counterintuitive until you've had time to practice your new skills and become comfortable with the new responses. But right now, let's take a look at the stages that anyone who begins to experience dementia will go through. All of us begin the dementia path at the same place, as adults, and usually as adults who have been independent for decades. Even if we've lived our lives with other disabilities, dementia will take us on a path on which we will become less able and lose skills we've used for so long that we may be completely unconscious of having had them. At first, we can read the clock and the calendar without much trouble and still recall the passage of time accurately. We can follow a sequence and perceive cause and effect, although we're becoming forgetful and lose our place more often. So we're able to perform tasks around the house and choose to stop for an enjoyable activity, such as watching the news or a movie or going for a walk, gardening, or having a cup of tea. At this stage, even people who do not have anosognosia are anxious to retain as much independence as possible. Most feel that they are more capable than their families think, and when we offer care to these clients, they really don't want us in their homes. Our approach is to not disagree with them about their children's concerns, but remind them that if we spend time together, we'll be able to communicate to their children how well they're doing. In this way, we are able to keep an eye on how their functioning is changing while still supporting their autonomy. We might visit these clients every few days or a few times a week. And then one day or one night, something happens. They may have woken in the night and been unable to recognize or recall how they came to live in their home. They may have tried to figure out what day it is and been completely unable to make sense of the calendar. Or maybe they tried to do a simple task like make coffee or start a load of laundry and found themselves completely unable to do what they'd done many times before. In any case, they found themselves confused and unable to solve a problem and lost confidence. Now this person will need more care. The first indication for us that a client has proceeded to this stage is that they ask for more of us. They welcome more assistance. And we are glad to provide more, for now they will find themselves confused more often. We know that the worst thing for their confidence and ability to function is to experience failure and confusion without assistance, for they would lose even more self-confidence that is vital for keeping their minds as clear as possible and keep their fear and insecurity at a minimum. We support their need of independence as well as safety, so now we drop by and spend more time with them daily. People at this stage of dementia feel safe as long as they know they'll be seeing someone within 24 hours. They'll be able to function in their familiar homes, eating, cooking, bathing, and caring for their pets with success for some time longer, with care increased as necessary by their companions who are carefully watching their changing abilities. The next stage is a reflection of progressing memory loss, for people lose the ability to retain information in their minds for long enough to make decisions and choices. You'll know your loved one is in this stage when he or she seems to be more compliant and easygoing. What's really happening, however, is that they've become unable to recall what it is that they prefer, whether it's a food, an activity, or an article of clothing. It's not that they've become apathetic and have lost joy in life. This stage is where people arrive when they can no longer draw to mind options or preferences and then express or act upon them. Now our role as caregivers has taken on a new twist. Now we need to help our loved ones retain dignity and independence by using our own rational thinking skills and memory to help them make choices. Someone at this stage should be receiving care daily. They need to have companions who are providing either-or options, both verbally and visually. They need companions who watch to see whether they're eating regular meals and what is being eaten. They need companions who notice whether they recognize soap and shampoo and recall how to keep the home clean enough to be safe. Usually by this point, our clients welcome cooked meals and a meal partner, as well as someone who joins them in cleaning the home and helping care for pets. These people begin needing help with almost all the tasks involved in living at home. If the person is also experiencing anosognosia, it may be necessary to perform essential cleaning tasks or laundry while they are out in the community with another caregiver, in order to preserve not only their acceptance of care, but their dignity. When our clients reach this next stage, they have lost almost all ability to make choices, express preferences, or initiate activities, even eating. They have lost confidence and surety in their own abilities to the point that they know they need constant help from their companions. If you've been using the tools of the Dawn method with your loved one when he or she reaches this point, their sense of security in you and acceptance of the state of being confused and not being able to understand what's happening most of the time will be comfortable. They will have accepted their state and will have trust in you as a loving companion. We know our clients are at this stage when even the most standoffish of them comes to need close physical contact. When we walk up to a doorway, they'll lean in or step closer, sometimes reaching out for a hand or arm, and reassurance about what they will meet once inside the room or building. However, if someone reaches this stage without learning that they can still be safe despite increasing confusion and need for care, their fight or flight responses will be accentuated and they will be filled with fear, frustration, and anger rather than comfort and acceptance. Often people seem to internalize an emotion at this point, fear, anger, even guilt, and then it's not likely that their companions will be able to change or diminish that. It breaks my heart when I meet someone who has progressed this far along the road that dementia takes us on, someone who has not been fortunate enough to have learned from his or her companions that safety and love is still possible. Someone who hasn't learned to trust others for guidance and help shouldn't be alone for more than an hour or two, yet if they've learned to trust, they can still be safe at home overnight, but their caregivers must be readily available and vigilant. They will need someone overnight now with very little notice. In my work with people who are experiencing dementia and living in their own familiar homes, I've found that they cling to independence and are determined to not have someone living in the home with them until one day when they suddenly request help. But we are standing by, watching and listening carefully, and the moment they ask for someone, it's important to have that person ready to stay that very night. To do this, we have a family member or caregiver on the team who's prepared to act the moment the day arrives. We sometimes hire nursing students who benefit from having a small income coupled with housing and need their weekdays free for classes and homework. This caregiver then moves into the home with the client and provides care from dinner time through breakfast on weekdays and round the clock on weekends. Other caregivers or family members provide care during the day so that no one person provides care 24/7. People who are at this stage still enjoy and benefit from having an hour or two to themselves after breakfast and again before dinner, as long as they're getting adequate sensory and social stimulation during the day. Someone at this stage needs routine more than ever before, a routine for dinner, for evenings, for bedtime, for waking, and for breakfast. However, we know our clients have left this stage when we come into the home or room and find them pacing, unable to decide what to do. They can no longer make sense out of their surroundings, and now being alone is harmful rather than beneficial. People who cannot make sense out of their surroundings or interpret sensory stimuli at all need a constant companion, someone who is always there to explain what they have heard, seen, or felt, someone who can initiate activities and help them eat, use a bathroom, and prepare to sleep. I know that in a care facility it's not possible to provide a constant companion for every resident who is at this stage of dementia. I think that's why people become bedridden and unable to communicate and yet live on for long periods of time. When we've been able to provide care through death, whether in the person's own home or in an adult family home where a constant companion is available, we see a different trajectory. People in this final stage of functioning are not able to initiate any activity or conversation. They can't recall their own memories or lives, but we take over that role and do it for them. One of my first clients was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about 15 years ago. She now lives in an adult family home with constant care. When I visit her, the caregivers tell me that she hasn't spoken for days. She needs someone to feed her every mouthful and care for her every physical need. But when I sit with her, and begin to tell her the memories and the stories that she told me during the years we spent together, she comes back to life. When we play for her the music we know she loves, the songs that were a part of her younger years, she comes back to life. She smiles and laughs and begins to talk again. Experiencing dementia means becoming ever less able to function without assistance. I know that apathy is one of the terms medical professionals consider to be a symptom of dementia, but I haven't seen my clients become apathetic. I have seen them grieve for themselves, for their families and their futures. I have seen them confused and frustrated by the changes they're experiencing to their cognitive skills. I have seen them lose the ability to recall what they once loved doing, and to lose the ability to initiate doing what they want and need to do for themselves. When I think of myself as a companion of people who are experiencing dementia, I think that my primary and most important role is that of initiator, to listen, to pay attention, and to learn from my companions what it is they like to do, who they are and were, and who and what they love and have loved. I then become the repository of all that incredibly valuable information for them, and I become the one who initiates on their behalf. So these are the 6 levels of care needed when we look at the path dementia takes us on from the perspective of functioning. At Dawn, we believe that everyone can age in place given the right supports, and we believe in families, that we can all provide truly supportive care to our loved ones when we understand the experience of dementia from their perspective. We've put together tools and techniques to help families and caregivers provide truly supportive dementia care. We've found that dementia-related behaviors melt away when caregivers understand and meet the emotional needs that drive them. Thank you for joining me and watching these videos. I hope they help you and your loved one go through the experience of dementia with less stress and pain and more peace and companionship. Please take a look at the website for the Dawn Method. You'll find more resources there for you and your family.